everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks. And I am your host, Carolyn Hayes. And this is the podcast / YouTube channel where I, your host, Carolyn, speak to different creatives in the film and television industry about their work and their experiences in the industry. And today I am joined by my friend and fellow film critic, Valerie Complex, to talk about one of the films that we've seen at this year's Sundance 2022. And it's the film 892. In my head, I keep saying 892. But it's 892, and it's written by Abi Damaris Corbin and Kwame Kwei-Armah, and directed by Abi. And this film stars John Boyega, Nichole Beharie, the Queen, Connie Britton, Olivia Washington, and Selinis Leyva. And this film is really good, and I wasn't expecting it. I don't know what I was expecting, but what I got with this film isn't what I got. It's very well directed. I think it's very technically well made, and it tells a really good story about this Army veteran, Brian Brown Easley, played by John Boyega, who, after finding out that he's been shafted and owed money by the VA, decides to make a very ill-advised decision to rob a bank because he's at his wits' end. He's at the end of his rope. He has no money, and he thinks this is his only option. And this film explores the trauma experienced by a lot of veterans, as well as the financial hardships they experience once they leave the Army and they have to depend on the VA for income. And for you, Val, the reason I asked you to speak about this film because I'm very interested in it as a story, but also the acting, but also because your experience working in the being in the military, and you've talked about this because I know recently you've been hosting Twitter Spaces talking about your experience as a Black veteran and being in the Army. So I wanted to really get your perspective on this film. So what were your initial thoughts about it?
It's unfortunate because I had not heard about Brian Easley's story, which I'm kind of embarrassed by until I had seen the movie. And, I don't think I knew exactly what I was expecting. I had read the press notes and I sort of knew the premise, but I wasn't sure what I was getting into. But, definitely when I ended up seeing it, I was like, oh, snap, this is bringing back memories of people who I saw in the military and memories of people who I saw outside of the military. And he had to go through those lengths to get access to basic needs and basic care, which is so typical of the veteran system. John Boyega gave a really great performance. He reminded me of like watching a young Denzel Washington. Okay,
so you were. I had the same reaction. Me and another friend, we said this same thing.
Have you ever seen John Q?
Yep.
Okay, so it reminded me a lot of that. And, I just was, it's good for him to step out of Star Wars' shadow and start to build a career that really showcases his talent and values what he can do. And, the cast is solid. It was almost like watching a stage play. I feel like 892 could definitely be a stage play as well. And I enjoyed the movie.
No, I agree about it having a sense of a stage play because it is focused in one location, which is the bank. And there aren't that many variations in like the filming style, as in, for instance, like for the cinematographer, like they keep a very close focus on the individual characters. Like first, a lot of scenes with Brian, like they stick close to Boyega's, to John's face, and for the scenes with the bank teller, they stick on her face, and for the scenes with Nichole Beharie, who plays the bank manager, they really focus on it. And I think it's really important because to me, it like really. People say use the word humanizes, but it really does humanize because it reminds you these actors are playing people who do exist, who were in an extremely traumatic experience, and it's not like a regular quote unquote bank heist film, like those like the Ocean's 11's film, which is like completely fictional. Like I think it was important that they kept focus on these people to remind you this actually happened. Like the dialogue comes straight up from news reports and from the recordings that were taken, because Brian, when he entered the bank, he called the 911, he called the news station, so they have recordings. So this is actual dialogue and actual things that were said.
I think, having spoken to Abi Corbin, the director, she didn't know about the case either. And she, went through archives and footage and anything that she could get a hold of that brought authenticity and a genuine feel of the story to the film. Mm-hmm. So she was looking to add as much of that to the narrative, and I really appreciated that, because it's a true to life story and it feels like a true to life story. You know how you get these biopics or whatever, and they just sort of feel contrived and they center whiteness and don't really, center the narrative. It's all about a story that's being told through someone else's eyes, i.e. the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. But 892 feels very real, and it feels like it's coming from an authentic place.
It does, and that I think that's one of the things, and the thing that this was the very first film that I saw. No, wait, I'm wrong. This is the second film, because the first film I saw was Emergency. But to me, like this being one of the first films that I saw for the festival, it kind of impacted me, because it kind of made me realize a lot of the films that I saw for the festival are very human centered. Like there's nothing that I've seen is like extravagant or really just like entertainment. Like a lot of these stories are telling like very important stories about situations that are occurring, especially for the films by Black creatives. And Abi is white, but I think I do have to say that she really, I think, respected the fact that these were Black people that she was portraying on screen.
Well, she worked closely with the script writer, who is Kwame Kwei-Armah, to sort of get to the heart of the story. And so I believe that may have helped her a lot, in the long run, as opposed to, just writing the story offhand.
For you, as someone who was in the Army and is a veteran, like what was it like for you watching this film? Because the thing for me is, we've seen people talk about how the government basically ignores veterans once you've been discharged, especially if you're mentally ill or have a physical disability, like Brian, because Brian had back injury from the work he did in the Army, and he said he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and paranoia. Because I was reading an article by a 2018 article called By Task and Purpose, where it goes into his experience in the Army, but it also delves a lot into like how the government itself disenfranchises Army veterans.
The government itself disenfranchises everybody, whether you're in the military or not. But when you're in the military, it can be exceptionally egregious, because you've signed on the dotted line, and you're forced to deal with a lot of that. And so it all depends. See, my journey with the VA has been completely different than a lot of other people's. But the problem with the whole system is the lack of knowledge, like people purposely hiding knowledge from you and not telling you how to do things and how to get what belongs to you, like VA benefits and things of that nature. And they've screwed up, hospital bills and stuff for me too. But I've gotten that worked out. But it's taken some of these Vietnam veterans 50 years to finally start getting benefits, because the system is so slow. It's backed up. And then with COVID, it's backed up even more. And people are waiting years before hearing a decision. And what it is, when I got out of the military, I made sure I had everything done before I got out. But for those who are out and discover, oh man, I could have been getting this and this, it's very difficult. The system it's not kind to them. It's a lot of red tape. And it's like foolishness, like when they told me, like, they diagnosed me with PTSD, and they were like, well, you'll have to come back and get evaluated in a few years, as if PTSD is something that goes away. What? I don't know. It's just, the system is screwed up. I go into VA for checkups sometimes. I see people screaming. This is so much despair and just, I don't know. I think 892 does a really good job at portraying what that's really like.
Yeah, because one of the first scenes of the film is with Brian going into the VA office because he's realized he hasn't gotten his disability check, and he's like, "Where's my money?" Right? He's like, "I need this money.
Yeah,
I have no money."
The money.
Right? He's like, "Where's the money? I don't have the money." And then it's like and then you see the dismissiveness coming from the people working there. And you're thinking, okay, so like this man is in dire straits. This man needs to get his money to survive and live. And then it's like, you're also thinking in my head, like also thinking these people go through this every day with hundreds of other veterans. And they have to be mentally and emotionally exhausted having to do this. And it's not their fault, it's the system's fault. And then when the camera comes out, and then as Brian is walking out, he looks back and he sees like this long line like sneaking down the hallway of other men just like him, other men and women just like him. And then the lobby itself is filled with people sitting on the chairs and sitting on the floors because it's just packed with these people having the same issues. And it's just, you're just thinking, this is so egregious, because it's like the army, like something you said just now, like it can take years to get the money that you deserve, that it is yours, but it doesn't take the army or the government long to sign you up at all. You go into a recruiting office, sign your life away, and for them that's it. But it takes them years to pay back what they owe for the trauma that they put you through training, and then for deployment, because he was deployed into Afghanistan and Kuwait. And it's just like he saw like real war, and it's just like he worked in the supply office, but even then it was so traumatic because, as one of his crewmates in the article I was reading were saying, like bombs were dropping. You know, like they still had to deal with that trauma, and like they always had to be on high alert no matter where you are stationed.
No matter what kind of job you got, everybody walks around those bases with a loaded 9mm.
Mm-hmm.
They have, when they go to the bathroom, they got to wear it, and that could be traumatic. And like, that's why a lot of veterans don't like the 4th of July, big bangs going off, the bomb, sound like bombs. And a lot of them experience those flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked what they did in the movie, sort of portraying how Easley was sort of moving through the bank as if he was in some kind of war zone or something. And I was like, where does he think he's at? Like, you know what I mean? And so it made me think, like, where is he at? Where does he think he's at? He's just at the bank. And I don't know if he really wanted to rob the bank so much as he wanted his disability check.
Mm-hmm.
And so he thought the best way to get attention was to hold up a bank. And the lengths that people have to go through to get a response, to get the attention of an organization like the VA, is just absolutely crazy. It's ridiculous. I don't know. And like I said, I go to the VA, I look at people sitting down, waiting for stuff. I see the despair. The healthcare isn't all that great to begin with, because the doctors at the VA are underpaid and overworked and understaffed. And the system needs a huge overhaul. But I think, 892 and Brian Easley's story, now that it's coming back up and coming to the forefront, I hope it'll put a target, like a spotlight, on the problems that the VA has, and maybe they'll get their acts together.
I hope so too, because I just think it's so, the only word that I can come to my mind is evil. How, especially for this applies to any government that has like a military structure like the US. But I think it's, to me, one of the worst things about the US is because the US government touts itself as, we're like the most forward-thinking, progressive country, we're the most technologically advanced, we're the most educated, we have can't boast to have the best healthcare system. But then that also ties into it because the VA is part of the healthcare system because it's like ignoring people's mental health and disability. And then it's like you see the government passing bills for trillions of dollars to be added to the military budget, but that money is not going to help the soldiers when they come back from war. They spend all of this money building infrastructure to go to war, but do nothing to help the people when they come back from war.
I'm looking up right now how many veterans make up the homeless population. And it's some crazy statistic like okay, so as of 2021, a large section of homeless people in the US includes veterans. In fact, 11% of all homeless adults in the US are veterans.
And that's insane when you think about what the actual number is. Like millions of people are homeless, right? And that's an insane amount. And then because in the film it does like sure like for Easley, like he is on the verge of being homeless, and in real life, this is just in the film itself, but in real life he was homeless. Like he lived in his car. He was like it was said that because he was discharged in 2005, and a lot of that time he spent either in VA hospitals or like his family don't even know where he was because he would just like walk away. They said he would just get up, walk, and leave the house because he was traumatized and he was mentally ill. And he slept in his car, and like for where the film picks up, he is on the verge of being kicked out because there's like this man who owns a motel where he's staying at is telling him, are you gonna pay or get out? Right? And like every time he passed, that's what the man says, pay or get out. And it's just like also these people, they don't care that you are a veteran. They don't care that you fought for these, like they'll use a tagline, I fought for your freedom, I fought for the country. They don't care that you went to war on behalf of the country, on behalf of for them. They just want they don't, all they know is that you don't have money to pay the rent, so you need to get up and get out. And like for Brian, like he is there, that's where he is. He's just like, he's desperate, he just wants his money. And I think but there's another scene that really hammers home how common this is like for the character of is her name, it's not Lynette, it's played by Nichole Beharie. She's the bank manager, and she tries to connect to Brian by saying that her husband is a veteran too, and she knows understands what he's going through because she's like, my husband went through the same thing. So it's like even in that small situation, like even with just like 3 people, that's 2 people with connection to the army who are facing the same similar situations.
I don't know, it's just it's so tough, and it's a really difficult system to navigate. I've been receiving benefits for a while, and it could be a matter of life or death, because the way it works is like if they have percentages, right? They go from 10% to 100%. At every percentage, you get a monthly income, or they call it a pension. And with that pension comes certain benefits. So people who receive over 60% of the benefits are eligible to receive free health care from the VA. But there are so many roadblocks to just getting them to give you any kind of percentage. But if you're between 60% and 90%, you receive free medical coverage from the VA, but you don't receive dental coverage. You only receive dental coverage at 100%. And I'm about to look now. I'm curious to know how many veterans receive benefits.
Full or partial?
It says that something like 9 million veterans are enrolled in the VA Health Administration, or enrolled in the VA. So of the millions of military members that have joined, I think 9 million is a fairly small number. I know, look, being in the military, only 1% of the population joins the military. But if we're talking about from over the years, from its inception, millions upon millions of people have probably already joined. But at this current moment, only 9 million veterans are enrolled in the VA. It's crazy to me.
But even that number 9 million is kind of insane because that's more than the population of some countries.
Yeah.
Like Barbados's population is less than 300,000. So that's like Jamaica, which is the largest island in the Caribbean, is I think their population is just about 1.5 million people. So it's like you got like entire populations of entire countries within the VA system itself. And that's just insane to me. I just think that's insane. And then when you think about how many of them are struggling, are living just above or below the poverty line because they're not getting the full benefits and they can't work full time just because they have physical and mental disabilities, it's just like, again, kind of insane.
It's such a small number of people. The more you go up the ladder in percentage, the less, there are less people to share that with. So if, let's say, for example, there are 1 million veterans receiving 10%, then by the time you get up to 100, maybe only 5,000 veterans are receiving 100%. It's very crazy. Like, the whole system is messed up. And then if I was to sit here and try to explain to you how they add up the points, how they get to 100%, is even more convoluted. The system is it's just so convoluted. It's not, I don't think, would I join the military and do it all again? I don't know. Do I regret doing what I did? No. Do I miss it? No, I absolutely do not. I do not miss it. My family has sort of become a military family by default. Not because it's something that we respect or we're patriotic, but everybody had their own level of desperation that caused them to join, the country's biggest, the US's biggest safety net, because it comes with free healthcare, you get free rent, you get money for uniforms and stuff. It's a social system that works for poor people and sort of, quote unquote, gives them a leg up. But man, there was, I'll never forget the amount of mentally ill and homeless veterans I saw one time when I went to the hospital, and a lot of them were there because they wanted to just have they wanted to have a decent meal and shelter. And when they were being forced, I've seen some of them being forced out, and it's like they don't want to leave because they don't want to go into the shelter system or back to the street or back to drinking. But the system just gives them the boot and puts their asses on the street. And that's not how it should be.
It shouldn't be. And like the things, it doesn't have to be, because like when people are talking, especially about the homeless population, like there are places that can be used to house people who are without homes, like the government has the resources. There are vacant buildings that could be retrofitted and be made into homes for people. There's ways for them to become like, they don't even need to give back anything or to be called contributing members of society, because they already pay their dues by going to by enrolling and enlisting in America and going to war. They've already paid their dues, and then it'll be like, I'm like, the government owes them everything. And like there's another thing that made me it literally made my blood boil when it was revealed that the reason he didn't get his money is because there was a mix-up in the system, and they were saying that his money was being garnished to pay back for a college loan. And I'm like,
so they're not supposed to even do that. They're not supposed to do that. That money is not supposed to be taxable. It's not supposed to be garnished. There's nothing you can do. You can have a whole bunch of lawsuits. Once you enter the military, they are not able to tap into those funds. And also, a lot of times people go in the military with college debt and they're in deferment. So it's just sort of like it's not even a comedy of errors. It's just errors being made. And, poor people are the ones that suffer for it.
Yeah. And it's just so hard to see how, and then for how his situation ended. Like, this is a spoiler because I haven't in real life. Like, he died. Like, he was shot. He was never even given a chance to surrender, right? Like, he was killed. And there's a character played by Michael K. Williams, and there's the moment when it happens, and you can see the devastation on his face because he was acting as a hostage negotiator, and then the two bank workers faces. And I remember in that moment, I was just thinking, this is something that should have never happened. Like it should have never happened. And then at the end of the film, there's a little screen, the thing that crosses the screen where it says that even up till now, up to the moment when the film was made and released, his family never got the money that he was owed. Right. So it's just like, we were just thinking, like, what, like, I was just thinking, what was the purpose? Like this shouldn't have happened. And even that is
for nothing. They're probably out there, fighting, the VA for the damn money that's owed to them.
Yeah, and it's just like, and it wasn't even that much money. It was $892. So there wasn't even like a full $1,000 or anything. But that was, to a lot of people, that's not a lot of money. But that is a lot of money when you are living paycheck to paycheck.
That's a lot of money when you're poor.
Exactly. That's everything. It's enough for him to go into a bank and say, I'm gonna hold this bank up. I'm gonna rob this bank because I need money. I need my money.
I don't know. The whole thing is sad, and it really, I don't know. It really sort of touched me. It's just an unfortunate thing.
It was, and like as you said, I hope this film does like get people talking about this situation, and instead of glamorizing the military like these Disney films does with their MCU films, because that's what I call them war propaganda. But I want people to really, I think this film is gonna give people a more realistic look at what the military does after people are discharged, because a lot of these films also made that are about the military are about, the action and making it look cool. You're becoming a man's man, a hero. You're gonna get to shoot guns and do all these things. I'm like, it's traumatic as hell. And this film really does paint a clear picture of just how traumatic it is for people who wants to get out, because a lot of films don't explore that, or even if they do, they're still trying to make it seem so kind of macho way. Like a lot of those Clint Eastwood films kind of just say, oh, I'm rugged and I serve my team in the military, so now I'm a harsh man and I'm out for this. No, the reality is these people come out and they're traumatized and they need help. But I know you have to go, but thank you so much, Val, for talking with me. I know you did the podcast episode of John Boyega, so please plug that. And your comic book, I'm so proud of you for your writing. So promote yourself, please.
Thank you. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Valerie Complex, and on Instagram at Valerie_Complex. I work for Deadline as an associate editor and film writer, and I have a podcast at Deadline called the Scene to Scene podcast. Movie scene, and I scened it. So Scene to Scene podcast. And the latest episode is one with John Boyega talking about 892.
Yes.
So thank you, Carolyn, for having me. I think we had a really good discussion. Sorry, I have to go.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, because I know festival season and you being an associate editor means that you're busy. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And I just realized I don't even follow you on Instagram. I have to fix that.
I realized I wish we could have been there in person, doing what we do, usually hanging out, doing Katya and a bunch of us.
One day again, Val. But at least we got to meet up for TIFF, so we had that at least. So yes.
That's all right. Another one is coming, and we'll see who will be at that.
I know it's 2022 already.
All right. Well, I'll see you later. Thank you for having me again. Take care.
Bye. So everyone, that was another episode of Carolyn Talks, and I was joined today by my friend and guest Valerie Complex, associate editor, writer, film critic, and podcaster like me, for Deadline. And I was so happy to get her perspective and insight into the military and her experience, and into the film that we discussed today, 892, starring John Boyega, Michael K. Williams, and Nichole Beharie. And I'm not sure where it's going to show, but it's probably going to get either theatrical release, or I can see it going on like a streaming platform like HBO or Amazon. But I think it's a very important film. It's very well directed, very, very, very well acted, and worth seeing, because I think a lot of people need to realize that what happens to a lot of Army veterans and their families once they've left the war physically, but not mentally or emotionally. You can find other episodes of Carolyn Talks on butwhythepodcast.com. You can find it streaming on Acast under So Here's What Happened, because Carolyn Talks is what I call a sub podcast of So Here What Happened podcast that I co-host with my friend Lanisha Campbell. You can find episodes of Beyond the Romance as well on butwhythepodcast.com and other streaming platforms, including SoundCloud. And the video format will be for Beyond the Romance is on my YouTube channel. You can find episodes of my segments with African American Film Critics Association Virtual Roundtable on my YouTube channel, as well as the AFCA website. And we have been doing coverage for Sundance as well for AFCA. So you can find interviews with the writers and directors and the cast of films such as Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul. And I'm not sure by the time this comes up, we wouldn't have done it as yet, but we will be doing recordings for Descendant and a few other films showing at Sundance. So you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at CarrieCNH. That's CarrieCNH12. In my Pinterest, you can usually find my latest podcast recordings, video chats, and writings, as well as in my Linktree account, which is linked in my Twitter handle. And in Instagram, you can find the link to my YouTube channel. And you can follow my hashtags Dramas with Carrie. This is where I like tweet my Asian dramas weekly at Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also, started back doing OSTs with Carrie. That's OSTS with Carrie. That's my Twitter spaces where I play some of my favorite OSTs and occasionally K-pop songs from Korean dramas. And on Saturday nights, I co-host a Saturday Night Sci-Fi live tweet at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we watch films and TV shows in the sci-fi genre from around the world and on different streaming platforms. And until the next episode of Carolyn Talks, everyone, please stay safe.